Welcome, everyone. My name is Monique Madan, and I'm the head of financial life strategies at ETF Capital Management and UPotential. As I mentioned last time, this season we've opted for shorter, more easily digestible webinars that we will record and make available to you more frequently. I'd welcome your thoughts on this new format, and my contact information will be available at the end of the webinar. Feel free to send me topic ideas also. Before we get started, just one housekeeping item. As with all recorded matter, the information that I present to you today is current as of its day of recording. My late father used to say that there was nothing new under the sun. He would tell me this when I thought I was encountering a new situation that I was absolutely positive had never been experienced by any living person ever before. Okay, I was a self-absorbed teenager at the time, but this saying has followed me into adulthood. Each time a market hit a new high and the media would tout the excitement of a new era, I found my father's voice in my head. After all, if there really isn't anything new under the sun, then a market high would inevitably be followed by market weakness. Similarly, if markets were tanking and I was nervous about getting in, I would hear my father's voice tell me that markets have seen this before. Markets will rebound as long as you are patient. With no disrespect intended, my father wasn't always right. The pandemic hasn't behaved like most other eras. Unlike the typical market cycle lasting 3 to 7 years, the S&P TSX Composite Index went from a low of 11,851 in March 2020 to a new high of 17,846 in January 21. That's only 9 months later. And the markets continued higher from there despite pandemic restrictions and supply chain problems, human resources shortages, and all the other things that we've heard about the pandemic. Maybe we truly are facing a new market phenomenon. Some things have changed for sure. But before we make any conclusions, consider the context. I recently read a book entitled The Day the World Stopped Shopping by J.B. McKinnon. The book focuses on the economic and environmental repercussions of a society that reduces its consumption. The author cites an interesting economic indicator. He wasn't referring to the gross domestic product or employment statistics. He was referring to sales of, if you can imagine, recreational vehicles. Apparently, there's a strong correlation between sales of RVs and the economic cycle. Elkhart, Indiana, by the way, also known as Trailer Town, has become an early warning system forecasting financial slowdowns. When RV sales are dropping in Trailer Town, researchers have come to believe that a market downturn is on its way. So if dear old dad was correct, the pandemic should have been accompanied by a slowdown in RV sales. Au contraire, the pandemic saw an unprecedented demand for RVs as North Americans sought to preserve their freedom and travel plans despite the need to distance themselves from others. So the pandemic has not only behaved differently from a market cycle perspective, it has also behaved differently in the goods that are and were in demand. No matter what extraneous circumstances affect the markets, research has shown that when it comes to financial planning and investing in particular, we are our own worst enemies. Our gut instinct when it comes to enjoying market highs is to do nothing and enjoy our good fortune and brilliance. But as you can see in this cartoon depiction, the peak of the market is actually our maximum point of loss. Similarly, our visceral reaction to market downturns is to cut our losses and get back in at a later date, as if we're going to know when that later date is. But this is actually our maximum point of opportunity. Discipline would have us sell during stronger markets and hunker down and stay the course during market downturns, or even invest at that time. But this is simply an incredibly difficult thing for individual investors to implement. To assist us in maintaining our financial discipline, I often recommend that clients keep a robust cash reserve. You will by now be comfortable with the idea of an emergency reserve, 3 to 6 months worth of expenses that is used to help support you during an unexpected interruption in your earnings. But when you apply the same principle to your investing, you find that you prevent yourself from reacting to markets in an undisciplined manner, because market fluctuations are in fact divorced from your immediate needs for cash. If markets tank, but you don't need the money imminently, then you can pause long enough to consider market history and maybe even telephone your financial planner to get some context as to whether you really need to worry and make any rash decisions. Similarly, if markets are strong and you don't need the money soon, you can more easily proceed perhaps with culling some investment positions. Since the Great Depression, recessions have had durations of as little as 2 months or as much as 3 years, 7 months. So, as your boy or girl scout leader would recommend, we should be prepared. Consider how much cash you want to keep handy for the sole purpose of enabling you to separate your investment strategy from your immediate need for cash flow. For some, like those with strong incomes from employer pensions or dividend streams, 3 or 6 months worth of expenses like you already reserve for your emergency fund might be just enough. For those who don't have these strong, reliable income streams, you might want to reserve a year or more's worth of expenses in cash so that market volatility doesn't affect your standard of living immediately. If you're always planning for your cash needs in advance, your investment decisions will be made with a cool head and a greater ability to block out the market noise. As always, thank you for your time and attention today. To share questions, comments, and ideas for future webinars, please contact me by email at monique@upotential.com. If you want to see how UPotential's planning services can help you reach your potential, visit upotential.com/service to arrange a consultation.